Welcome everybody. Rooted in Sports Tuesdays are first of 2023,
Mm.
and I am back here with Mr. Isaiah Kit. What's going on, man?
How you doing, Kenny? I'm doing good.
How was New Year's?
Oh, it was pretty good. It treated me well.
Hmm.
Got to enjoy the games, obviously, and so forth. But can't complain. Happy to
Hmm.
be in the new year. Made it to a new year. And yeah, can't really talk about much, man. I'm happy. I'm excited.
Most definitely. I played. I took it easy myself. Didn't really party that much. Didn't hardly drink. I just kind of rested. But once again, it's good to make it into a new year, talk some sports. Obviously we'll know we know we have a buffet of topics to talk about today. First one, definitely being the Demar Hamlin injury, which is very unfortunate, and he's obviously still in critical condition. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we will go ahead and jump into bowl season, and just a quick recap on that. And we got week 18 coming up, and it's going to be an exciting week 18 for the NFL. Probably one of the exciting final weeks of the NFL in recent memory, because there's a lot on the line and teams are still, nothing's really locked up, right? So it's going to be the battle for the one seed, AFC and NFC. So let's go ahead, jump into our intro, and let's go ahead and get this thing percolating, man. Just like that, we are through our trusty intro and back to the action. So yeah, man. I mean, I guess just kind of really jumping into it. Last night was what was supposed to be, just this pivotal AFC matchup between two powerhouses, Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. Both who were well in play for the one seed. Um, the game started out, obviously we know Cincinnati scored. It was 7-3. But we had something very unfortunate happen. Demar Hamlin, who is starting at safety in place of Micah Hyde all season, playing very well. He goes to make a tackle on, I want to say, is it T. Higgins?
T. Higgins.
Um, and makes some contact in the chest area, makes the tackle, and then as he gets up from it, he collapses shortly thereafter, um, cardiac arrest, and then from there on that they had to perform CPR on him for, I want to say, 8 minutes, which I think obviously this is a pretty long time to perform CPR, and then ultimately they were able to you know get him breathing and stuff like that. But he has been in critical condition ever since then. He's been sedated.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go ahead and start out and just talk a little bit about this situation, and how does the NFL move forward through this?
Well, first and foremost, prayers and just thoughtful things in terms of like prayers up to his family, his
Hmm.
friends, his loved ones, and Demar Hamlin himself, and his well-being. Um this situation was something that was, I don't think we've ever seen, really. I don't think it really matters the age range, how old you are, how long you've been watching football. This was a pretty traumatic inc- incident that happened on Monday Night Football, and I'll say this: sometimes it's not even about the hit. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
NFL has been doing a really good job, or they've been trying to progress, and be progressive in making sure that these head-to-head collisions aren't happening as often and so forth. But this one is just a freak accident. I can
Yeah.
remember Ryan Shazier. I can remember a handful of just instances where it was really scary for the player, but this one was really alarming. When after a certain amount of time, it happened 8:55 p.m. And just after a certain amount of time, you could tell. I don't even I think there was a lot of telltale signs that this type of event and what had happened and what had transpired was a bit different from the norm. Because
Right.
we see players
All the time.
yeah, we see players, not being able to, be coherent. They might be a little wobbly. They might even bring out the stretcher,
Right.
and we see them carted off, and they give us the thumbs up.
Right. Like I'm good. Make it. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's some type of like acknowledgement that they're fine.
Right.
That never occurred last night.
Right.
That never occurred last night, and
Mm-hmm.
you just look at what just everything that happened surrounding it and how the players reacted, the coaches, everybody's reaction was justifiable because like I'm sure those guys, like I said, I've never seen nothing like that watching
No.
football, been around the game and so forth. So I'm like those players, we got players that's been in the league for years. They've never seen that. They've taken countless snaps, never seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, like I said, prayers up to his family, his loved ones, and himself, his well-being. Such a young dude, 24 years old. I think he, not really, and it doesn't matter at this point because it's like life or death, and we're talking about someone's life,
Yeah,
livelihood. But played on defense, not really one of the Bills' notable name, big name guys, but
up and coming actually.
Up and coming, and played the third most snaps this year on that defense. So, there's been a lot of moving pieces and parts on that defense, and he's been an integral part of what they do defensively because he's played the third most snaps on that defense.
Right.
So it's not even about that. It's not even about that. It's just though I can imagine. I was thinking about like how Sean McDermott, these other coaches, these players, they probably spend more time with him than they do with their own families. You know what I mean?
That's sports, man.
Like they are on the move throughout this whole from really July, like from July to January, February, and up until whatever they're done playing. Depending on the circle, like that's who they're around a lot of the time. So this is definitely like a family. It's bigger than a team. It's bigger than a gang. This is like a family, a brotherhood that they share. And to see him go out like that, not have really no real answer on his well-being, very, very hardsome and troublesome. And I was really surprised that the NFL was like, so after we'll give you guys 5 minutes to warm up, and then we're gonna continue playing. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. I'll let you take the floor.
Well, I'll say this. First of all, let's recognize this. The NFL is a money business. I think that probably the NFL is just starting to get to a place within the last 15 or 20 years where player safety has become paramount. It's become a lot more important. And obviously that's because of various injuries and the advancement of the NFLPA and things of that nature. But I will say I will give them the benefit of a little bit of benefit of the doubt, because they may not have just realized that this is as serious as it actually is, because we don't see this type of situation very often. Now, I'm not making an excuse for them. What I'm saying is let's give them a little bit of grace. First of all, they're a money business, so we know that. Let's go ahead and be real. To them, they're worried about, okay, how can we resume business? And second of all, this isn't normal, so their mindset is probably like, oh, he'll be okay, or obviously he's hurt, but let's give these guys some time and we can resume play. So maybe they just didn't think it's as serious as it is. But once again, it's a good thing that the players and the coaches stood up and said, no, we're not going to do it. And sometimes that's what it takes. Now, as far as Demar Hamlin, being very unfortunate, you don't see things like this very often. And I think it's just a reminder that the game that these guys play, even if it's for our entertainment, I think we have to really realize we say this, and I think that people scoff at it or they make it seem like, we're being over dramatic or we're over exaggerating it. Football is a gladiator sport. It's literally a gladiator sport. These guys put their bodies and their lives on the line for our entertainment. And I think this is just further proof of that. Now, even though we don't see this very often, I think me and you were talking and I made reference. This kind of reminded me, it may not be exactly the same, but it was eerily kind of similar to, I don't know if you know the motivational speaker, Inky Johnson. He used to be a cornerback for the Tennessee Volunteers. He used to be a cornerback for them, I want to say 2005, 2006. And, he doesn't have use of his left arm anymore. And that's because he made a tackle on, I want to say it was on up the left sideline. And when it was against the Air Force, and
I know exactly what you're talking
exactly. About. And he took impact in his chest area, and he collapsed and he blacked out. And I don't know if he exactly went in a cardiac arrest, but I know that he was very close to dying because of nerve damage and major arteries in this area. And he could have died, if I'm not mistaken, could have affected his heart. Instead, he just lost his left arm.
Right.
So, I mean, man, it's exactly what I'm talking about. And anybody who's, can check out Inky Johnson. He talks about his situation all the time. And obviously he's used that situation to, just to inspire people and let them know that, that nothing's over after injury. But once again, respect these players, value them, understand that these guys have families, and that at any moment, that's why I live life the way that I live. At any moment, this thing could be over. And once again, prayers go up to Demar Hamlin and his family. He's still in critical condition. Hopefully he can pull through. I mean, I think the fact that he's still going right now is a plus. But I want to say the doctor that was operating on him said that every second matters. So it's definitely going to be a process. And hopefully, within the next 24 to 48 hours, he can come to and, he's, better and he can talk and things of that nature. But this is definitely, regardless of what the outcome is, he's definitely going to have to, I'm going to go ahead and speak it into existence that he wakes up and he's fine. But he's definitely going to have to contemplate his NFL career after this. Let's just be 100% honest. So, I mean, like I said, it's a violent sport, and now I think that's more apparent than ever before.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right there. We got to value these guys. I think like we have the opportunity and the platforms to talk about these sports and these players that we love, adore, or that we criticize, or that we quote unquote hate. We have the space to do that, but I think often we forget. I think and it's not like purposely, but I think in the midst of us discussing and talking about their talents and what they can do and their abilities, we often lose they have a family, they have kids, they have wives, they have mom. It's the little things like that. Where I think about it. I was just thinking about it. I'm like, because we had Christmas Day games, and I'm like, wow, like these guys, they're playing on Christmas Day, they're playing on Christmas Eve. They play on some critical, I would say family oriented holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So
these guys make sacrifices.
They like big time sacrifice, not just physically, but also like psychologically and mentally, and what they have to do on a week-to-week basis throughout this time frame that that we watch NFL football. It's definitely a reminder that we can't take them for granted. And I also like the fact that, not like the fact, but I was like, I'm glad we can stop a game to
Yeah.
to make sure, and for the betterment of someone, and
But
not just that, and not just Damar Hamlin.
you're right.
Obviously, he's the center of attention. He's the center of focus. But those
It shows
players,
priority. It
yeah,
shows some like yeah.
it shows some rightful priority. And it shows that, like, okay, we're not too lost in the sauce as a society, because a football game can be stopped. You know, especially one to this magnitude, it can be stopped.
And and I'll say this once again. I think that just shows the power of how far the power of players, the voice of players, has come over time. You know, where they can be like, "We're not, nah, dog, we're not finishing this game." You know, obviously, and the coaches and kind agreed with them, but I think that is the biggest thing, just that the players were able to speak up, and obviously they were very emotional, but the players were able to speak up and be like, "Nah, that's not happening." And now we're in a place where, and rightfully so, we're in a place where this game, they might chalk this up. This could be a tie. You know,
Yeah,
they could consider this a tie. I mean, Saturday's right here. I know Cincinnati has a game. If I'm not mistaken, Buffalo has a game on Sunday.
yeah. Both teams
So
got games.
yeah. So this might be one of the things where they just got to chalk this up. Playoffs is right around the corner. Is chalk it up as a tie, and I think
Yep.
that both teams would happily take that. They'll either way it goes, they're going to be a top 3 seed between the both of them, all three of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm including Kansas City because Kansas City is the
Yeah.
1 seed right now.
We
Yeah,
know.
but
Yeah.
I think that they'll based on the seriousness of this situation, they'll happily take a tie. You know, so
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. The outcome is further from people's minds, and from the players' minds, and from everybody that's been involved. Like, prayers up to T Higgins, and T Higgins. A lot of people, I see some people like, hey, why did, like, T Higgins keep him lifted? But, like,
yeah, because you can imagine like you're the guy he was tackling, and people could
yeah,
look at, and I'm sure people are trying to throw some
of,
backlash his way, and it's like,
of
dude,
course,
you're just catching the ball.
you're
You
just
just
catching
make
the ball.
it's a routine play.
It's root, like what we saw, and that's the funny thing. What we saw, because I had some people that don't really watch sports,
Mhm.
um, and, like, they were asking me, like, how did this happen, like, and I was like, well, funny enough, it wasn't even the hit, like the hit. I mean, obviously it was the hit, but it was the way and the motion of it. But I was like, it's a real routine play, like throw, drop back, throw, catch, run for yards after the catch, and a tackle, but, like, a group tackle, and that just happened. I was listening to a couple of doctors over the past 24 hours, and them explaining how the cardiac arrest happened.
Mhm.
I think there's a term. It starts with a C, and I'm blanking on it right now. I was trying to listen, trying to point it out at the beginning when you started talking, but there's a term for the fashion that a lot of doctors are implicating, that this, whatever happened, that's what happened, and that led to a cardiac arrest. So it just really happened simultaneously in a bang bang play, really. So, like, people would just ask me, like, how did that happen? I'm like, kind of just routine, and it's like the type of hit, how we got hit, and just like the timing of it was just simultaneous. It just simultaneously just happened like that. It
Yeah.
it, it wasn't like a head to head collision. You know what I mean? So it's just unfortunate. Like I said, everybody that's involved, prayers up to Damar Hamlin, his family, T Higgins, everybody, all both teams that were
Involved.
involved,
Yeah.
and NFL just in general.
Mhm.
Like you said, ultimately they made the right decision in stopping this game and postponing it. And I think, honestly, they're gonna probably chalk it up as a tie because of the time frame and how things are set up in terms of the scheduling and so forth, with
Yeah.
last week of the season, grand finale, and then we moving right into the playoffs.
All right. Yeah, no, most definitely. So we'll keep you guys definitely updated on that. Hopefully by next week we'll get some good news. and we'll
Absolutely.
and we'll see what happens with that. So once again, that is Demar Hamlin. We'll see what happens with that moving forward. But we moving on to a little bit of a that was heavy. Let's move on to a lighter topic, because that is pretty tough to talk about. But we just had bowl season, which was kind of wild. I don't want to say kind of. It was pretty damn wild.
It was wild.
It was wild. Yeah. Some crazy stuff happened that, I mean, man, I couldn't tell you. I'd be lying if I told you, I thought some of these games would work out the way that they did. But very, very fun. Zay, I know you probably had some games that, one or two games that you had that stood out to you. I mean, obviously we can both talk about the the TCU Michigan game,
Absolutely.
which Kevin was just so confident, was so ever confident that Michigan was just going to run in there and do whatever the fuck they wanted to do to TCU. And I had to tell people, I said, you know what? Even though this TCU team isn't like uber talented, they are there. One thing you can say about TCU that they have over every other team in this college football playoff, they're battle tested.
Like hell.
Battle tested. They've played what was it? They had the most top 25 wins.
They had the most top 25 wins. I think 6 of the last 7 games they won by like they won by like 7 or less points. So like it was a scrappy fight. And we can start with that game if you want to. Like,
I mean, I think that we should. You can tell me what you thought.
No, we should.
The way that I'll just keep it short. TCU looked like a team that was on a mission. They took advantage of all of their opportunities. They really never let their foot off the gas. And Michigan was trying to find points all game. Even though they picked it up and they were able to make it competitive, TCU did what they're supposed to do. They applied foot to throat. And they continued to beat them in a submission to the fact, I want to say it was by the third quarter, the way they were playing, even though Michigan was being competitive, just the energy that TCU was playing with, I said, oh, they're going to win this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know. I was going to say this. All year, I think TCU has been underestimated, honestly. Mm-hmm. I thought the first college, I talked about it I'm not sure if I was on here, but I talked about it, I'm sure, on the Rooted in Sports space on Saturdays. And I talked about it on my podcast where the first college football playoff rankings came out. And I was like, whoa.
They weren't even ranked.
Why is TCU at 7? Why are they at 7? I mean, they started off at 7, the first college football playoff ranking.
Okay.
They were at 7.
But when the year started, they were unranked.
Yeah, they came into the year unranked.
Yeah.
And then the first playoff rankings came
7.
out. They were at 7. But I'm like, hold up. They were already 7-0. They had already had multiple top 25 victories. The victories came in pretty good fashion. They were dominant on both sides. They had a top 10 passing offense and top 10 rushing offense. I'm like, if this was Texas or Oklahoma, they would be no lower than 4 if they had the same looking resume. If they had an identical looking resume, they would be no lower than 4, at least 4. So TCU, I think from the jump, they have always been underestimated. And I tell you, I thought Michigan. I thought this was if there was any year where I thought Michigan had a pretty good shot at making the playoff. I mean, making a national championship game and possibly winning it. I thought it'd be this year.
And I think Michigan believed that as well. I think that they thought all the stars were going to align for them. And to tell you the truth, I hate to say it like this, I think they got caught looking ahead.
They got I'm gonna get the Michigan because I don't want to take anything from TCU.
Of course not. Yeah.
I mean, and I thought it's funny. The way I thought TCU was gonna win this game was the way they played, which was with a lead.
Yeah.
They got out to a quick start and they played with a lead. I thought every time Michigan, as you said, every time Michigan came back and you was like, "Uh-oh, here comes the like." For me, I was looking at the energy that TCU was playing with, but in the back of my mind, Michigan has been one of the better second half teams in the country. So I'm like, okay, eventually the momentum will shift to Michigan, and I want to see how TCU responded. Well, I'd be damned. In the third quarter, they were taking blows. They were going back and forth. And Michigan, every time Michigan started to get their gas, they started to get a little bit faster, TCU would just come back. And that's been the makeup and the identity of this team. So they definitely earned and deserved this win. They played on their terms. They had the lead, and they made Michigan play on their terms.
Let's be 100% honest. They have went through a murderer's row of a schedule this year. So it's not surprising, because the truth is they've been in knockout dragouts, especially coming into the college football playoffs. Every week they were barely winning games by 3 points, 6 points, and obviously they had the close loss to Kansas State, which was a great game. But
and I mean, they probably got robbed in that game. You know,
yeah, what I mean? Yeah, true. And here's the thing: I mean, I think they made a bad decision. They should have went ahead and ran a QB sneak, or I think they tried to get cute, but that's a game that they should have won. But let's look at this: Kansas State, who they beat already. You know, they played Texas, who a lot of people are complaining about Alabama, but we all know they should have lost to Texas. TCU beat them convincingly at full strength. They had Quinn Ewers and B. John Robinson. Baylor, close game. Right, they beat the pants off of Iowa State.
Right,
played Kansas State again, barely lost on. But looking at some of the games earlier in the year, they had that great game against Oklahoma State, won it by 3 points.
Yep.
They had the tough game against Kansas. Go ahead.
That Texas Tech game, they won by 10 points, but it was a point in that game. Tight. They were down by double digits in that game at home. So you're right. They deserve it.
They deserved it. So I think that Michigan, once again, TCU did what they were supposed to do. And you hear a lot of things like, I want to say some of the Michigan players were being disrespectful, saying they didn't know what conference TCU was in and things of that nature. Like, they kind of played them a little bit. But TCU came in with a chip on their shoulders, and I love Sonny Dykes. Like, he said something. I'm a big, even though I love college football, I'm very critical of the SEC, because I think that people kind of because the people gas the SEC up so much. And the truth is, even though the SEC is talented and they do have some powerhouse schools like a Alabama and a Georgia who have built, and now Georgia's looking like they're building a dynasty.
Yep.
Sonny Dykes is like, look, we don't have the benefit of freaking playing these small schools in week 10. He's like, we play Texas.
Yep. No other conference has that benefit.
Yeah.
No other conference can go schedule Austin.
ITT Tech. El Camino College. Like, these are the schools that they play these terrible schools, and they have
so late in the year.
And they have one or two of those games, and then they play a big in-conference game. And I'll be honest, when you compare that to every other conference, they actually play teams in their conference week in and week out. So when people talk about the SEC, I'm like, you're looking at all these other conferences, the Big 10, the Big 12, even the Pac-12, who people are critical of. They play each other.
The Pac-12 was beating up on each other all year.
They were beating the brakes off of each other. Oregon State, Oregon, freaking USC, UCLA. Like, these guys are beating the brakes off each other, huh?
Yeah. And I say this about Michigan. Like TCU, it's funny that you mentioned what Sonny Dykes said, because that was something that I pointed out when it happened. I'm like, that's not fair. And if the SEC is just that dominant, I think that we don't need to. Why do they need to do that? Why do Alabama? Why do LSU feel like they need a prep game before a big time in-state, in-conference game? Like, why do we need to do that? Why do we need to do that? And you ask yourself, like, another thing with and I don't want to drift off topic, but we're talking about the SEC and how they schedule. I thought it's been a while. It's like people have been challenging Saban on, hey, why do all these early season games have to take place at a neutral site field? Why you don't take your team?
He doesn't like playing.
He doesn't like that.
He doesn't.
And we saw why this year. We saw
they were bad on the road. They struggled on the road.
They went to Texas. Texas had 100,000+ people in the stands. Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian, and boy, Texas had them on the ropes. If I hate to say it, and let me not say I hate to say it, but if Ewers is healthy, Texas
win that game convincingly. Probably convincingly. Yeah, probably convincingly. Yeah,
that probably changes the trajectory of Texas season. You know, from obviously they finished 8-4. Maybe they would be a 9-win team, right? Or maybe they're a 10.
I think they're a 10+ win team.
I thought they were.
I think that propels them.
Right. So, you know, I totally love the fact that you brought up what Sonny Dykes pointed out about how they schedule. But then also, I'm looking at Michigan. I'm like, I felt like when they got down, and granted, they fought back in that game.
I think they were shell shocked.
They were
shell shocked.
I would say their players, from the coaching staff to their players to the play calling, it seemed very much aggressive and stunned. Like, whoa, like, whoa.
Look, yeah, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and use this phrase that we use in the Black community all the time. They thought shit was sweet.
They thought it was sweet.
They thought it was sweet. They thought they was gonna go in there and whoop on TCU, and they was gonna lay down for them. And once again, and that didn't come to fruition. And now here's the funny part, and we don't even have to talk about this very long. Jim Harbaugh is gone. He's leaving. He is leaving. And I think in his mind, he's like, look, I did my job. This was the best year. This was the best chance we were going to have to win a national championship. And that's over. He's gone. He's going to the NFL. I promise you he is.
And with Michigan, I saw some uncharacteristic throws from JJ McCarthy.
I'm still critical of him anyways. I think he's still growing. He's talented, but I think he's still growing. I can't get mad at his mistakes because I think that he's still very young and inexperienced.
I know, but because I know Michigan and Michigan fans and the coaching staff, I know in their hearts of hearts, they're gonna probably go back, if they haven't already, look at the film and be like, well, damn, we spotted them 21 points, 2 pick sixes, and then obviously the fumble in the red zone. Like, it's like, damn, we spotted them. We gave them 21.
But here's the thing: why should the pick sixes surprise? TCU has a phenomenal secondary.
But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying, King. I think here's what I think went wrong for Michigan in that game. As I said, I think overall the players, from the coaching staff to the players and the play calling, they got very antsy and very aggressive. They tried to get whatever deficit they were facing, they tried to get it all back in just that one segment, that one sample size. And that's why I said I'm critical of McCarthy too. I think he's still young, but he was forcing some throws that I quite didn't see. That I didn't see those type of looks and tendencies from him early on in the season. So the defense, I thought defensively they got too antsy and was blitzing like just so premature.
So shit is. Could you attribute some of those decision making from JJ McCarthy that maybe he's just all season had been under that type of pressure where he like, oh shit. Like, I mean, I know they had a few close games, but I don't think that they've ever been in a position where they ever felt like, yo, like we're getting our ass whooped. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Michigan, you're right. That's part of it. I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot of it where as a team, not just himself, they got away from their bread and butter. What made Michigan so dominant was their pin and pull schemes in terms of running. like Michigan, we know they have been really dominant in controlling the line of scrimmage and being able to run the football. They've been able to do it on anybody that they have faced this year.
Right.
So like their pin and pull schemes that they're so commonly used for. And if you don't know what that is, that's just the tackle. That's just the tackles and the guard pulling and so forth. That is what they're good for. You didn't see those type of running concepts on Saturday playing TCU. You just didn't see that. I saw a scheme that was really basic. I thought the play calling in the red zone wasn't great either. You know, they got in the red zone 0 points on 2 drives in the red zone. So that's crazy. Within TCU's 5-yard line, not just the red zone, but within the 5-yard line. So that's why I'm saying the coaches, if they already haven't already, they're gonna go back and look at the tape and the film, and they were like, "Well, damn,
we missed opportunities.
We missed opportunities like hell. We had I thought the Philly special. So there was a couple plays to me, Kenny, that stood out, and they tried to run the Philly special. Teams got to know. First of all, everybody knows it's coming when they see it. The defense knows when they know it when they see it, but then also it only works in man coverage. If that DB is just lurking and he doesn't move, so they tried the motion. They tried the motion to see if they're in man coverage. When you motion and you see that DB doesn't follow, that should let you know that that's not man coverage. This is some type of zone, and he's lurking.
They're gonna sit on it.
They're gonna sit on it, and that's the Philly special. It's effective when it's man coverage. So it was just little things like that where you didn't see the guy come, you didn't see the DB follow the guy in motion. You gotta switch that read out because that ain't the look you want versus the Philly special. It was just certain things that I picked up on, and with certain standout plays offensively and defensively with Michigan, where it's like, well, damn, you left a lot of meat on the bone. And you left a lot of meat on the bone. And this is the repercussions you have to pay for. And it's just sad that, these things couldn't be tweaked out early on in the season. And it has to come out like this.
Well, I say that in all sports, that's what happens. And once again, I'm not going to insult Michigan and say that they weren't challenged or they haven't faced adversity, because at certain points of the season, they definitely have, and they've overcome. They've won one or two close games. But I think that it just shows when you're playing a team that's used to being in those moments, say whatever you want to say, TCU is comfortable being in those moments, in close games, in boxing matches. They're used to operating in the paint. So I think you're just seeing a result of that. Obviously, Michigan was a much team, but TCU, I think, was the more focused and the more prepared team. So it really is sad to watch because I wanted to see Michigan go and get them 1-2. I'm a big Jim Harbaugh fan, but that just didn't happen. But I think that this win and games like this that are continuing to become more and more prevalent, it's great for college football because the disparity is shrinking little by little by little. And you're starting to see some of these teams who were doormats a few years ago actually be able to swing with the big boys. So I do want to shift gears a little bit. Because obviously we could talk about a buffet of games. We had the Notre Dame, South Carolina game. And we don't even have to be long on that one. I thought it was a good win for Notre Dame, and I'm loving the direction that the program is going with Marcus Freeman. And on the South Carolina side, I'm telling you guys, I've been supporting this guy for the past year and a half.
I already know.
Spencer Rattler is showing the nation that he is really here, and I would have never thought that he would have looked this good. Granted, there were some bumps in the road that he could have looked good with South Carolina, because everyone's like, when he went to South Carolina, why there? You could have waited to the Pac-12, but he went the hard route, and now he's becoming better because of it. So I thought that was a quality game. Tennessee Clemson. I think you spoke about. Go ahead.
I'll say this. Dabo and this Clemson Tigers team, and I think I love bowl season because I think it's a good identifier of where these programs are heading.
Where
these programs are heading.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying Clemson's gonna go down to the drain, and I'm not saying Clemson's gonna be trash, but I think we're starting to realize that the ghost of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence is a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger to fulfill. It's some
You had
big
two.
shoes.
You had two transcendent guys in
In a
in a
span of
five,
five
6 years.
5 years. Like
Yeah.
it was like boom boom. It was like, hey, Deshaun Watson, Trevor, like you're going from a transcendent talent to another transcendent talent, and turns out both of them are pretty good pro, like for the most, like they're pretty good pro quarterbacks.
Right.
So I think, obviously DJ Ugalele, and then
God bless him.
uh Cave, Klubnik. We saw him on display. I think with Clemson, this was a pretty good identifier of where the program is heading. I think they need to be able to get some more speed and vertical threats on the outside.
I agree. I think they're going to go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just, and then with Tennessee, I thought, hey, like if you're a Tennessee fan, and I told you beginning of the year, you're going to have one of the more signature victories in the country in beating Alabama. You're going to have a Heisman hopeful. You're going to have an 11-12 win season, and you're going to win the Orange Bowl. I think a lot of
it's a success.
They will sign up for that. They'd be like,
Right.
Sign me up. Where the hell do I sign?
Mm-hmm.
So, like with Joe Milton and his progression, and boy, he is talented. He can sling it. So I just think it shows like the direction of these programs.
Programs are headed. I'll say this about Clemson. I think Dabo Swinney's a phenomenal coach.
I think so too.
He's we could say whatever we want to say. He's to Clemson.
Had one of the more impressive runs in college football.
Very much so. And he built a program that wasn't very good when he got there. And he's put a good amount of very solid, a very successful pro players in the league.
Absolutely.
But I think what we're gonna see right now, even if it's for another 2 to 3 years, and I think that now, because you had those two transcendent talents at quarterback, it was able to erase mistakes in other areas. Maybe the defense wasn't as good. Maybe the receivers weren't as good, as you thought they were.
Right.
And now I think you're going to have to turn the page back where you're a little bit more well-rounded, and we're going to have to go back to the Taj Boyd days.
Yeah.
And I love Taj Boyd. Boyd actually was a damn good quarterback.
He won. I think he won an Orange Bowl.
He won an Orange Bowl. Exactly, he did. Taj Boyd was very. As a matter of fact, isn't he on that staff?
He may be.
I think he is on that staff.
Because people forget, before Deshaun Watson, there was Taj Boyd.
And Taj Boyd, once again, wasn't a prototypical NFL caliber talent, but at the college level, he was their guy.
He was their guy.
He was their guy. And I think that maybe, you have to kind of things back to where the program was there, where you become a lot more well-rounded. And I think this is a good chapter for Dabo Swinney to really get back in his bag and really build a better roster out, not depend on, I got Trevor Lawrence or I got a Deshaun Watson. Because once again, I think that's this chapter right here is gonna, I'll say, reassure us that he is a phenomenal coach.
He is.
And really just show what he can do. I think when you just don't have that guy at the quarterback position. So good win for Tennessee. Tennessee's training up, and Clemson, thank God for DJ. I think it's good that DJ decided to leave. I still think DJ is going to be very good. If he can go to the right program.
He's at Oregon State.
He chose Oregon State.
He chose Oregon State. And I know we're going to talk about SC. So I saved my comments for that.
I thought he was going to UCLA, but Oregon State is interesting.
Oregon State. And here's the thing. And
it's about interesting.
It's funny that you bring up about how, when you have great transcendent talents, we even see it at the NFL level, they're able to hide in they're able to hide different deficiencies on your roster and your program and your team. I think also the loss of Brent Venables. Brent Venables was one of the better defensive coordinators in the league in the country, and he didn't have such a bright year, at OU at Oklahoma, but he was still an integral piece of what they did on that run with Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence and them winning those 2 national championships because, you got those guys at quarterback, but then you got to get stops. And I think, so losing Brent Venables, that was a big loss as well. So you talk about having a more well-rounded team. I think that don't also just go with player and roster and personnel, but also goes in with the coaching staff. Because we've seen Saban for years lose Kirby Smart, lose Lane Kiffin, lose Steve Sarkisian, lose Bill O'Brien. And bring back Bill O'Brien and be okay. You know what I mean? So
no, I agree.
So I agree. It's that rinse and repeat that they got to get down.
True. And here's the thing. I think seeing a program like Clemson, who I can say 3 or 4 years ago, I just said it's about to be Clemson's time. And I think this continues to shine a light on the job that Nick Saban has done in Alabama, because not only is he a great recruiter, he has built a very well-oiled machine that it doesn't matter what happens. He's going to find a way to be successful. I mean, even this was, I don't think this Alabama team was that good. There was nothing about them that was special outside of Bryce Young and Will Anderson and maybe a Jamar Gibbs, and all those guys are leaving. They still
got 11 wins.
They still almost had a small chance of sneaking in the college football playoff.
Right.
They
were people that were arguing for them.
100%. So that just shows you just what it looks like to build a program that isn't just so much dependent on talent. It's more so the philosophy, that guys just fall in and follow. So, that was a very good game, but I mean, we can go ahead and talk about this USC game because I'm gonna tell you this.
You want to do Georgia Ohio State or no?
You know what? Let's do Georgia Ohio State. Let's end on USC.
Okay.
Georgia Ohio State, because I know me and you talked last week, and we both agreed that we just felt like Ohio State was going to come in there swinging, and Jesus Christ, they did.
I mean, absolutely. And I told you, stylistically, if you look back at the last team that beat Georgia, because Georgia, obviously, as you mentioned, Kirby Smart and what he's building in Georgia. They've been a dynasty. They've been a damn good dynasty. They've been the best team in college football for a little bit over 18 months, I would say now, going into 2 years. And the last team that beat them was an Alabama football team that could stretch the field vertically. Jamison Williams gave them a lot of issues. So we both came into this game and we're like, Ohio State, if there's any team that stylistically that could give troubles to this Georgia football squad and mainly their defense, it's this hybrid passing offense, the best passing offense in the country with this Ohio State personnel. And they did come out. I thought, and I, I've been on this Ohio State thing real hard, and I'm like, there were pitchforks out for CJ Stroud. There were pitchforks out for Ryan Day, and they had to come out. They had to come out swinging to win this game. And honestly, Kirby Smart even said it himself. Kirby Smart said Ohio State should have won this game. Like Kirby Smart himself, he said they should have won this game. Yeah. I think there was some incredible execution on both sides. Some controversial calls. I think Kirby Smart's timeout, one of the best timeouts I've seen to prevent the Ohio State fake punt. But then I look at the targeting call that got taken back on Marvin Harrison Jr. Right. I thought that played a huge role in how the game went because he was Marvin Harrison Jr. I swear he is his dad. He is his father. He's his child's son. Or how do you say that? He's his father's son.
He's a chip off the old block.
He's a chip
off the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
The apple
we can go on and on.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
And here's the thing:
he has his father's skill set with
a bigger body,
like being more physically gifted.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. We're saying he's a father, and granted, his father's a Hall of Famer, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say even in a short term, I think that at times he's looked more dominant at this point in his career than his father looked. Because I think his father played at Syracuse, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, Syracuse with Donovan McNabb and things of that, but yeah. So I think that him getting hurt definitely changed the trajectory of that game. But it showed that Georgia is not the team that they were last year. They're still very susceptible. But Ohio State came in with a very good game. I think CJ Stroud played his best game of his college career.
Absolutely.
And I think that he silenced a lot. Been critical of not that he wasn't talented, but I felt like sometimes his mechanics can be a little iffy. Sometimes pressure can affect him. Sometimes he doesn't go through his reads. He doesn't perform well against the blitz. And he quieted all of that in this game. Because Georgia, let's say, even though Georgia's not as good as they were last year, that's an elite defense.
It's still a good defense.
It's elite defense. Yeah.
I'd agree with you.
Yeah.
He had one of those performances that Justin Fields would have in these type of big games. Because Justin Fields played in a lot of big games, and often he performed well in those big games. And I was waiting for that moment for CJ Stroud, because I'm like, okay, like most of the games he comes into these games where the opponent, his team is just heads and shoulders more superior than the opponent. Yeah. And it wasn't like that with Georgia. Georgia made him play.
Yeah, they did.
He played damn well.
Yeah. And once again, I think that definitely boosted his draft stock. I think now we're looking at the realism of CJ Stroud possibly going to Houston #1. Another story for another day, because obviously we'll talk a lot of draft stuff moving forward. But just a phenomenal performance by him in that offense, and obviously the missed field goal, it sucks.
Heartbreaker. It's a heart crusher.
It's a heartbreaker. Yeah, but I'll say this. Even though Ryan Day put together a great game plan, eventually he's going to have to win one of these big games. I think Ryan Day is in the same position of a guy that we're about to talk about, Lincoln Riley, where they're just so highly regarded for their offensive mind. And, we want to put them in that category of just these elite head coaches, but they just can't win big games.
Yeah.
They're great coaches. They have great schemes, but they can't win big games. And obviously that makes me transition into the USC. And I can't believe I'm fucking saying this, fucking Tulane game in the Cotton Bowl. And USC loses this game 46-45. We're on Rooted in Sports. I mean, not Rooted in Sports. We're in the chat, and I remember messaging. I'm watching this game. I'm at the gym, and I'm looked up, and obviously USC was scoring. There was a time where they were up about 15 points.
Right, two scores.
Right. I remember messaging. It makes no sense. It is sinful for a Power 5 school to be this poor defensively. It's a crime. And the truth is I think that this was a loss that was good for Lincoln Riley, because I think now he's finally going to have to really face the music, and he's going to have to grow up, and he's going to have to build a defense. Recruiting should be all defense, but you're going to have to let your friend go. Alex Grinch, he has to go. And it's not that I don't think that he can still be a good defensive coordinator, but not with this unit. That was the type of performance that gets you fired. Just to kind of shed some light on how bad it really is. Tulane had 539 yards. Wow. They rushed for 309 yards on 34 attempts. They averaged 9 yards per carry.
That's astonishing.
That's not normal. And then I want to say honestly, in the second half or in the fourth quarter, they had 205-yard passing and 4 touchdowns. Or no. They had 234 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. And they averaged 29.3 yards per completion. They averaged 10 yards per play. Like, this is how bad their defense is. And it was the same thing that happened against them against Utah. I think Utah had over 500 yards in that game. And they just got skull drugged. So, pretty embarrassing loss, but I hope Lincoln Riley takes this and he takes it and he realizes, oh, if I don't change this, it's going to continue. It's like Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to repeat over and over and over again until you fix it.
Yep. And you talked about Ryan Day. I think his one signature win is I mentioned one of those games. I think he beat Clemson and Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence last year in college, he beat Clemson, and that's his signature victory. If this continues with Ryan Day, I'm gonna talk about Lincoln Riley. If this continues with Ryan Day, he's gonna be the next John Cooper at Ohio State. He's gonna be the next John Cooper. He wins a lot of games, but like there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling. And John Cooper wasn't bad at Ohio State. He had like a 71 win percentage, but ultimately he never reached the heights that an Urban Meyer reach or Woody Hayes, the great Woody Hayes, that's what it is with Ryan Day. And you're so right. And I think Ryan Day, there's reports that he might relinquish his duties of play calling. So maybe, and I think the technique of that is if he's relinquishing and removing focus from play calling, then that would help him better manage the game and give him more ample space and time to manage the game per se. I don't know, but with USC, a part of me was glad that they didn't make it to the college football playoff. Because I knew their defense was bad. Because I talked about it all year. I knew their defense was bad. But I didn't know it can look this bad. Versus, and I'm going to give Tulane their props, right? I don't want to disrespect.
Come on, I don't want
to disrespect Tulane, but that was atrocious.
Yeah.
And as talented as many plays Caleb Williams can make, he can't overcome a defense that succumbs 46 points to Tulane in the bowl game. I mean, I think it's inevitable. And it's funny because USC's all three of their losses look the same.
They're the same.
They look the same. Like the first loss at Utah, which I predicted they would lose at Utah because I looked at Utah's style of play and I'm like, this is going to give USC problems. Well, I'd be damned. USC had a chance to win it. Defense got to make a stop. They don't. Once again, Pac-12 championship game. This time it's not even that close. Utah just smacked the hell out of USC's defense. And then Tulane, USC was up 14. They were up 2 possessions twice in this football game. Right. Somehow, some way, they let Tulane come back in this game
4 minutes.
With 4 minutes and just do whatever they wanted. And it's astonishing that all of their losses look the same. It was never a point in this season where you can look at that USC defense. You're like, man, the offense just didn't show up today, and the defense won them this game. Like,
no, never.
That was not the case. And this is why, like, people, we go back and forth in the chat with others, but this is why I held my ground. Like, Caleb Williams is the best player in college football. And honestly, after this, like, how, like, moral victories and kind of like a good loss, bad loss, that type of thing. This loss, granted, I'm sure Caleb and USC wanted to win, but this loss signified why he was the Heisman Trophy winner, why he was the best player in college football, and why he cleaned up every other quarterback award there is to win in college. Like, that's why he did. That's why he won it all.
He was tasked every week with being a god. And I hate to say it like that.
Like, literally.
But it's really like, be a god or we lose. And that's been the recipe every single week. And they were able to get 11 wins out of that.
And damn it, he was that.
Yeah.
For every game this year, he was that.
And here's, and I'll just say this. I'll throw this and
go
go.
ahead.
For anybody that questioned where he was because of some of the talent, he threw for what, almost 400 yards and he threw for 5 touchdowns without Jordan Addison. And Jordan Addison going first round in the draft. So that just shows you, like, Caleb Williams is him.
It's him. And I'll say this about Caleb. I reiterated, no one this year, no one team, no one program depended more on one player like USC depended on Caleb Williams. No one team. No, he was the most valuable player in college football, and it wasn't even close. No one team depended on no one player more than USC did with Caleb Williams. And I talked about it. I said, you remember early in the year, I was like, no one so far in the country
has been asked to do
has been asked to do so much, where I started to realize, okay, because everybody was like, oh, USC's defense not that bad. They lead the country in sacks. They lead the Pac-12 in sacks. They lead the Pac-12 in interception. I'm like, no, their offense enables that
to play risky, for them to be risky and blitz and jump routes. Because they like, man, if they score on me, Caleb fitting to get the ball and go right back down the field. So we're going to get another chance at it.
I said it all year. No one team masqueraded and hid their deficiencies better than USC did. And that shows you with the 11 wins. Because you look at this defense, and that's why I say
they were ranked they were the 101st ranked defense in the nation.
That's insane. And that's why I say what I say. This first year turnaround with Lincoln Riley, please don't take it for granted, and please don't hold other coaches around the country to that same standard, because the mere fact that he took this team that was a 4-8 team and went from an 11-win team with they had a great possibility. If they win the Pac-12 championship, they're a playoff team. He took a 4-8 team to nearly a playoff berth. I just think that is just unheard of. And it goes to show you how good of an offensive mind he is. And it goes to show you how wonderful of a gift Caleb Williams has been. I mean, I don't even know how do you sum it up?
I mean, but like I said earlier, we can kind of really before we move off of this, because it at this point it is what it is. This was a loss, to tell you the truth, that Lincoln Riley needed before making that move to the Big Ten. Because if you think that it's going to get any easier, you're gonna run into that same brand. Teams are going to run the football in the Big Ten. You're going to have some teams, obviously, like Ohio State and the Michigan, that's going to do more passing. But it's traditional ground and pound and play defense over there. It's a physical conference, in my opinion, as a whole, more physical than the SEC.
As a whole, yeah.
So it's good that he's experiencing this now. Get punched in the mouth now, but we're looking at different possibilities. And once again, we're going to talk more about this as time goes along. They need to like literally empty their bank accounts, empty their piggy bank for a great defensive coordinator. Like, they need a real, like, everyone's talking about Jim Leonard. They need to give Jim Leonard, maybe not the exact same thing, but they need to give him almost similar to what they're giving Lincoln Riley. Like, hey, we'll give you a private jet. Like, we'll pay your house off. Like, they need to do everything they can to get somebody like Jim Leonard in Southern California, because it is not, if they go in, and I'll say this, if they go into next season with Alex Grinch still as their defensive coordinator, they're not serious. And they're not serious about maximizing Caleb Williams.
And I'll say this. I told you, we was discussing this on Saturday in the chat or on Spaces, and I was saying once USC makes this move to the Big Ten, I think if this doesn't change, and it takes time, you want to get your recruiting grounds and so forth. So it takes time. I'm not gonna wish upon the stars and say, hey, Lincoln Riley has to change this defense by year 2, year 3. No, it takes time. But I'll say this.
They
Going
have to
into
at
the
least
Big
be average.
absolutely. And I was gonna say, going into the Big Ten, you know who they're gonna look like? They're gonna look like for the first couple years at least, they're gonna probably look like a lesser version of Ohio State.
Ohio State. I can see that.
They're
I can
gonna
see that.
they're gonna
I
look
can see
like a
that.
lesser version of Ohio State, where great offensive minded coaches, but they aren't like, I don't want to say their focus isn't in the trenches, but they are not as good and as reputable as they should be in terms of their line play and their physicality and what they look like defensively. It just shouldn't be that way. Like, so
That's
Ohio
why
State, they have a ceiling because they I mean, their receiver they get some great quarterbacks behind center, and they're gonna outscore most teams that they play. But they're gonna run, but eventually they run into more and better
physical teams.
round-rounded teams and physical teams, and they cap out at a ceiling. They like
Right.
their ceiling right now is semifinal playoff game, and with SC, I think they're gonna be a little bit of a lesser Ohio State, where great offensive mind, but they cap out. They cap out at some point.
And here's the thing, like I said, if USC with Caleb Williams, and this is not even considering what they're going to do, what's going to come in the transfer portal, what they're going to do recruiting wise. If they can get an average, or even God forbid, a slightly above average defense, they're a playoff team. And they're a playoff team with odds to win it all, because all they need is a defense that can make those, that doesn't get drug up and down the field, and that can make 1 or 2 stops, and they're gonna win. Like, that's how good Caleb Williams is. So once again, we don't want to beat a dead horse on that, but it was just a very sickening win. My boy, they was coming after me because I'm a USC fan. I've been talking shit all year. So they lost, and I could tell. I'm like, man, these guys are on standby. As soon as the clock hit 0, they posted on Facebook. They said, Kitty, are you all right? And I went ahead, and as opposed to answering, I just reported them to Facebook for bullying. So yeah, I'm just gonna give you guys that advice. You come for me, I'm just gonna report you for bullying and offensive behavior and speech, and we'll let Mark Zuckerberg and those people deal with you. But that's another story for another day. But moving on to the NFL, our very last, which is fun, man. Right now, we had some really good games this last week, but for the first time in a while, I feel like there's really something to play for in the final week. Week 18, man, like the AFC and the NFC 1 seed is not decided. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about the Demar Hamlin situation. Yeah. That could very much so put the nail in the coffin for the 1 seed in the AFC. We'll see what happens with that. If not, that's very much still alive. In the NFC, we just saw Philly, drop a game to New Orleans, which I felt like they were going to drop that game. It just felt like a New Orleans type of win. They dropped that, and now they're injured. They have a lot of key injuries. Now they're hobbling into week 18 against a souped up Giants team who's going to play their starters.
And it's a must win.
And
I would assume it's a must win for Philly. I would assume.
Oh, it's a must win, but here's the thing: now you're stumbling, right? And you're playing the Giants team that's very confident in themselves. It's hard beating teams twice.
Yep.
Right. So, and that opens up the 1 seed for San Francisco to be the 1 seed in the NFC. There's a long Dallas could very much so be the 1 seed in the NFC. Tell me really quick, what are your thoughts on this race? We could talk a little bit about scenarios in a minute, but what are your thoughts on this race on both sides? Start wherever you want to start.
I start in the NFC. It's one of these things where Philly, they won the first half of the season. September, October, And up until like Thanksgiving, they won. They won the first half of the season. But then we always say there is a back end of that stretch where these games, these December, we get in December, the weather plays a factor, injuries, a lot of these things really play a factor in playoff seeding. And with Philadelphia, you are witnessing a team who I think, not saying they're the best team with me saying this, but they have been the most consistent team throughout week one till now. I think they have had the least amount of lows, and they've been the most consistent team. That's not me saying they're the best team,
Right.
but now we are witnessing, we're seeing a Philly team that's banged up, and I know everybody knows about the Jalen Hurts injury, but they're missing Lane Johnson, who is, I mean, he's as good as it get at the right tackle position in this league. They're missing him. He's really important. Everybody talking about Jalen Hurts, and I understand.
Lane Johnson is arguably a bigger loss.
Lane Johnson, if he's not fully 100% or recovered from his surgery, I think that was he got, that is a huge loss. And you can have Jalen Hurts all you want, but he is a big part of what they do up front.
Right.
Their nickel corner,
Avonte Maddox.
They are missing some big time pieces, just even outside the quarterback spot.
Right.
So you're looking at Philly, it's like a little unfortunate because it's like they're getting hurt at the wrong time. And they're not playing their best football. And honestly, I think I'm not saying they won't get to the Super Bowl or they don't have a chance. But we may have seen the best of this Eagles team. Like
I concur.
I think we may have seen the best, and I'm not saying their best is bad, but like their best can get them to a Super Bowl, but that's just their best. And I don't know if we've seen the 49ers go ahead. Dallas.
You said something key, and I was arguing with somebody about this on the chat. Bo specifically. The truth is that I think that Philly has already capped out to what they'll be this year. Mm-hmm. And I don't see them getting any better. Even if they were healthy, I don't see them getting any better as a team. Dallas is trending upward offensively. Mm-hmm. San Francisco is trending upward. Brock Purdy looks more and more poised every single week. Minnesota, I'm just playing. Green, you have all these teams.
Okay.
No.
Because last week you were like, hey, you need to respect. You need to put some respect. Hey. And I said, hey, Kenny, I'm like, hey, they come out every now and then, every other week. It's like they don't want to play football. They look like a team that's going to be picking at the top of the draft. And you're like, well, they got 12 wins. You need to respect it. And I'm like, I don't know if I should. But go ahead.
No, I mean,
you were pounding the table.
Okay, look, let's still respect them, even though they're a little soft. They're a little of a finesse team.
Little of a finesse team.
They're a finesse team. But watch this. We have to give Kevin O'Connell credit for what he did with this team.
First year coach. Yes.
Coach with 12 wins.
Yes.
And a lot of close games. And previously they were losing these one possession games. So we got to give them credit for that. But just keeps adding to what you were saying about this Philadelphia team, that now, this team that seemed high and mighty and they were playing, I think that they were just playing their best football before everybody else was. And they were relatively healthy. And they have a stacked roster. We can't take anything away from them. If you take out, honestly, outside of San Francisco, you can arguably say Philly probably healthy has the best, most complete roster in corners, pass rushers, linebackers, offensive linemen, receivers, running backs. They have everything.
They have it all.
Tight ends, right? So, they have it all. And now they're seeing what life looks like with a little bit less.
And that's where I mentioned the Cowboys. I mentioned the 49ers. I don't know if we've seen their best football. Like, I don't know. Like, I think there's another gear the Cowboys can get to. Now, whether or not they get to that gear, that remains to be seen. I think there's another gear the 49ers can ranch it up to, and it could boost them and propel them to the Super Bowl. Like, I think those other teams have other gears, but with Philly, they feel like they have capped out. And you're right, they were playing their best football. I think, and another thing is, hey, we saw Washington, and granted, this can be, hey, this is just division games, and they know each other.
I don't think it was a one-off. I think Washington matched up very well with them.
But I was going to say, and this is what I'm going to say. Washington played them twice. The second time, Washington got the best of them and beat them at home. Dallas played them twice. Granted, I know Jalen Hurts wasn't there, but damn it, there is some remnants to what I'm about to say. And then the Giants, we're gonna watch the Giants play them twice. And I think with Philly, they play a style of offense that I think is really hard to keep up with if you haven't seen it. Like, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't faced that downhill rushing attack, if you haven't faced that explosive RPO game that they have, I think at first glance, first time playing,
it's intimidating.
It's intimidating, and it's a bit much, especially if knowing like, hey, this is the most complete team in football. They have everything. I think it hits you, it shocks you. But now we have a case study. Like, I love case studies. I love trends. And now we have a trend building up where, okay, you play Philly for the second time. You get similar looks. You know how to combat a running attack, a passing attack. There's certain things in advantages to playing a team a second or third time, possibly, which could be in the deck for the Giants or the Cowboys.
And here's the thing. If you guys think, we're looking at this Giants matchup, and first of all, I don't want to harp on Philly too much because we have other teams in the NFC and the AFC. If you guys think that Brian Daboll hasn't done his homework based off of the first time they played Philadelphia, because even when you look at New York playing Dallas 2 times, the second time they look significantly better. You could argue that 1 or 2 or 3 plays swung that game in Dallas's favor, but New York was very competitive. I really think they're going to beat them, and I don't think that is an indictment against Philly because they're a good team, but I think that they're showing how much the Giants are growing. And I'll say this before you move on or whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I think if Philly doesn't get the 1 seed, I think that's gonna be what dooms them, because right now they have a lot of key injuries, and Jalen Hurts is playing this week out of necessity, and I think that it's out of desperation, and I think that that's very bad. They would have loved for Gardner Minshew, who I think that people are being a little bit too hard on, to win these 2 games to where they could have just sat Jalen Hurts and let him rest and get himself together for the playoffs. But now you're going to play him out of desperation, and you're going to ask him to do a lot more. And right now, not just at the quarterback, that team as a whole is struggling. Yeah, and Josh Sweat is hurt. Let's throw that one out.
And Josh Sweat is hurt too. That's another huge loss. And the reason why if they don't get the 1 seed, because I can feel you in this. I can agree with this. If they don't get the 1 seed, as we mentioned, they are already dealing with a litany of injuries to notable starter impact guys. So, and maybe we can open up the rim of scenarios and the possibility of the playoff picture. If in fact they were to lose, and we can get to the AFC next, but let's say the Giants, the trend continues where when you play Philadelphia the second time, you get a grasp on what they like to run and the concepts they like to run. Let's say the Giants beat Philadelphia, and we got the 49ers as the 1 seed, the Cowboys as the 2 seed, and the Eagles as the 3 seed.
No, they would become the 5 seed.
They would be the 5. You're right.
They would be the 5 seed. Them and Dallas would swap. So
You're right.
You would see Philly. Go ahead.
So so my apologies on that.
No, you're good.
Philly would be the first wild card team, which is the 5th seed.
Right.
They would have to go to Tampa Bay. And that is a game that they've seen what that looked like last year. Granted, this isn't the same Tampa Bay team, but I'll tell you something about these. Every once in a while, every few years, we laugh at these type of divisions where it's like, damn, y'all. I mean, they like 8-7-1, 7-8-9, 7-8, like they got some weird, crazy records. We like, what the hell?
Go on, say it.
Somebody say it. It's always the winner of these division game of this division, these type of divisions. They usually squeak out with a playoff win, and we laugh at them all year. But do you remember the Seahawks finishing 7-9? The beast mode. The Saints went 11-5. The Saints went up to Seattle, and beast mode erupted. The beast quake. These things happen, and I don't know. And I thought home field advantage was critical for Philadelphia. Not only just that extra week of getting ready and preparing and health wise, but you got a second year head coach in Nick Sirianni where it would help. It would do him wonders if he's at home and not on the road. It would help and healthy. It would help if Jalen Hurts was at home and he didn't have to worry about just certain little things like that where it can swing the potential of a Super Bowl run or a one and done run. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. And it's funny because I'm literally, man, when I tell you I've been thinking about just the different scenarios in the NFC and just how they could play out. And the truth is once again, Philly being where they are injury wise is so bad for them to have to play a wild card game. One, they're playing a Tampa Bay team that at this point has overcame a lot of adversity and that has absolutely nothing to lose. They found a passing game. Now, I'm not saying that this would be a game that Tampa Bay would go in there and roll all over them, but I think that this is a game because of the presence of Tom Brady, and this is regardless of whether it was Dallas or Philly playing them. It gives them a chance. Now, when you look at the way that Philadelphia plays offense, with Jalen Hurts being such a huge factor in the running game, I think the presence of Levante David and Devin White can potentially stymie that because you're not going to outrun these linebackers. It's going to be hard. So I think that matchup just looks a little bit different. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say.
Well, I would say this. I think that opens up the NFC as a whole because the truth is as good as the 49ers are, nobody's scared to go to fucking San Francisco.
I'll say this.
Nobody's scared to play.
No, okay.
Nobody's scared to go to Santa Clara.
This is where we depart ways. And I'm not okay. This scenario. I think we can both agree that no particular order. But I think there's 3 teams that stand out in my mind in the NFC. And we have 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles. And all 3 teams have questions. I think the matchup that the 49ers, the matchup that the Cowboys want would be the Eagles matchup. I think they align better their play style and the way they want to play football and the way they should be playing football. It aligns better with Philadelphia.
I agree.
I think the Niners are a tough matchup, honestly, for anybody in the NFC. And that's where I say you're saying nobody's scared to go out to San Francisco. I'm not saying
no one is
scared, but I think if you would have asked any of these NFC teams, the Vikings, the Packers, the Cowboys, they don't want. I don't think they want to see San Francisco.
But then let me challenge you here, and this kind of watching this game last week, 49ers, and to answer your question, Ira, yes, we do. I think New York beats them even with Jalen Hurts. I don't think that the big, I hate to say it like that, but I don't think that Jalen Hurts coming back, especially in the condition that he's in, is going to make them that much better. But either way, we'll go back to what I was saying. Watching this Raiders game last week, I think kind of showed a little bit of the chink in the armor of the 49ers. And I continue to say this. They haven't really played anybody. They haven't. And here's the thing. Every time they play an explosive offensive unit, they get handled. Kansas City had their way with them. Watch this. Atlanta, watch this. Atlanta, who's a running team. We could say this. They were one of the best running teams in football this year. They ran all up and down the field on San Francisco.
You're not going to mention the fact that they were missing 6 starters.
That doesn't mean anything. If they're that talented, if they're a good defense, they're a good defense. So my point is even though I think that I agree with you that San Francisco is a bad matchup on paper with Dallas, I don't think
anybody, honestly,
for anybody, I don't think that they've seen. Think about this: the Raiders might have been the second or third best offense that they've played all year. They dropped 34 points on them, and they moved. And Jared Stidham moved the ball on them with pure ease, and Josh Jacobs was running the football on them. So it wasn't like they weren't going in there and bullying them. Their most impressive win is against a one-dimensional Miami team, missing 2 offensive tackles, and one of their star wide receivers went down. That's their signature win from a defensive standpoint. Outside, their other games are against Washington, the Rams, who had one of the worst offenses in football. So this is not me hating on the 49ers. I just want to tell people this 49ers team isn't last year's 49ers team. Last year's 49ers team was battle tested and they had a resume. This year's
49ers team.
No. But guess what? It restarts. No. These are the same guys. But guess what? It's a new year. And the truth is your resume matters. Situations matter. The truth is the past 7 or 8 weeks, the 49ers have really been able to beat up on inferior teams that really were struggling offensively. So I could argue that, let's be honest. Go ahead. I think I'll say this. I think that Philly and I think Philly's going to lose this week. I think if Philly is firing on all cylinders, I think that they can beat the 49ers convincingly because they haven't seen that. They're going to be like, whoa, we haven't seen this all year. Watch this. I think if Dallas is able to really get a running game going with Tony Pollard and Zeke, I think they beat them convincingly. And it's not that I think the 49ers are so bad. I just think people think that their defense is better than what it actually is. They haven't played anybody. That matters.
Now I don't think I think they have a great defense.
It's great. It's great. It's not historical like everybody says.
I don't think it's historical. That I agree with. I do not think it's historical. I also think it's 2022. Well, correct me. It's 2023. Offenses are going to get loose. Like that's I feel like no matter how good a defense or how well a defense is put together, and I think the 49ers, the Eagles, the Cowboys, I think all 3 teams are really like defensively, they're really put together really well and nicely. But I don't know if I'm going to put that much stock in what I saw in the Raiders game. Because defense, like offenses can move the ball. Like you got a couple playmakers here and there. You can run the football effectively, which the Raiders have been able to do this year. You can move the football. Like I'm not saying it's easy, but you can move the football. And so the Niners, and that's where, and here's where I'll meet you. I'll meet you halfway. Okay. The Niners, I say this. Teams have to play a certain way in order to win. The Niners, I feel like they have to play a certain way to win. So what I mean by that is, I don't know if they are going to be as fortunate and have the luxury to give up 34 points versus an Eagles team where the Raiders, you can score points all because
defensively they're poor. Yeah.
But if you give up 34 to the Eagles, can you put up 40?
No, I don't think they
And,
can.
and like, so I say that to, and I'm not gonna say just vehemently no, but I say that to say this: the Niners have a preferred style of play that best suits them, and when they play that way, they're at their best. Granted, they were able to put up 37 on the Raiders, but a scoring match like that, that's not how the Niners want to play. So that's where I'm meeting you halfway. I'm not saying their defense is all time great. I do think in today's game and how the game is played offensively, defenses, even good ones, can be exploited because just like these offensive minds are just so smart. The talent on offense is just so incredible. You can find ways to manipulate and exploit defenses, even good ones. But preferably, I don't think the 49ers want to get into a shootout with the Eagles. I don't think the 49ers can afford to give up 30, 34, 35 points to the Eagles nor the Cowboys, because I do like, unlike the Raiders, those teams are a little bit more advanced and talented and resourceful enough defensively. They can calculate and generate stops. So that's where I meet you halfway.
Yeah. And this is not to get down on them. I just think that resume matters. And especially once you get into the postseason, like you look at Dallas, I think that Dallas knows their weaknesses and they're able to pay attention to that. I don't think the 49ers, I mean, we could talk about the limitations a few limitations that we've seen out of Brock Purdy. I still don't think they know their limitations defensively. And I think that that's scary going into the postseason. Whereas Philly understands their limitations defensively and offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Dallas very much so understands what they need to do. So that's the difference. That's the only part I'm critical of them. Love the team. Brock Purdy's playing great. Great offensive cast. Christian McCaffrey's playing his tail off. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think for them, it's just going to be,
that's another thing.
Going, huh?
That's another thing. Health.
Yeah, health. It's just that they're essentially going into uncharted territory. And here's the thing. Let's say they play a Minnesota, who I believe that they'll beat. I think that Justin Jefferson probably has a field day on them. We saw what Devontae Adams did to them.
Yeah.
I think Justin Jefferson has a field day on that team. So that's neither here nor there, but we can definitely shift over really quick to the AFC. Yeah. And which is obviously looking like Kansas City is going to be the team to beat. I mean, they've captured another 1 seed, and it's looking like it's going to go through. And barring, we'll see what happens, obviously with the Bills and Bengals game. But I mean, man, it's really tight. But here's the thing: Kansas City has been playing. They've been winning a lot of tight games. Like Denver pushed them. The last 2 times they played them, they've pushed them.
Yeah.
And then they play the Raiders this week with absolutely nothing to lose. And that's a game that they could very easily potentially lose if they go in there and they sleep. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the top of the AFC?
The top of the AFC, honestly, Kenny, I'm really leaning towards whoever comes out the AFC will probably win the Super Bowl. Like, okay. I'm like, I want to see what happens and how it happens. But I'm really leaning towards probably the winner of the AFC will win the Super Bowl. I'll say this. I said this already, but I think Cincinnati is what everybody thought Buffalo was going to be.
100%.
In terms of coming into the year, everybody thought Buffalo was going to be the most balanced team. They have so many ways they can beat you. They can run the football. Their defense is great, stellar, elite, and that's actually Cincinnati. Cincinnati, they have a variety of ways they can beat you. They can run the football. They have a balanced offense. They actually have a consistent top 10 defense. So right. I think Cincinnati is what everybody thought Buffalo would be, and I'm say that to say this. I'm not saying with me saying that I'm not saying that Buffalo's not dangerous. I do think they're dangerous. But if we're talking about going into Kansas City in a playoff game with chips, all the chips on the line, I think I want Cincinnati in that game. If you're telling me pick a team between Buffalo and Cincinnati that can beat Cincinnati, I mean that can beat Kansas City in Kansas City, give me the team that actually beat Kansas City last year at Kansas City. In the
And watch this, and Cincinnati is getting healthier at the right time.
Getting healthier at the right
At
time.
the right time.
So that's what I say about Cincinnati. Buffalo, I still think is very dangerous. I think Buffalo can be susceptible to an early loss, a divisional round loss. I really do think that, depending on the matchup. And how about we can do a little rundown scenario. Kansas City's #1 seed. If assuming that the NFL say, hey, we're gonna do a tie, who would have the 2 seed? Who would have the 3 seed? And so forth.
Buffalo, for my have the 2 seed. Cincinnati would have the 3 seed.
Okay, who sits at 6? Or 7?
Who sits at 6 in that division? 6 would be the Chargers.
6 would be the Chargers.
And
so
then
Chargers,
7 is to be decided this week, which could potentially be New England. All New England has to do is win. And and oh my gosh, I'm gonna tell you, they play Buffalo, by the way.
They play Buffalo, yeah.
They play Buffalo.
Yep.
So it could potentially be the Dolphins.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it could be Pittsburgh. Yeah. So I think yeah, well, hold up. 5 is going to be the top wild card is going to be Baltimore. 6 is the Chargers, and then 7 would be the Steelers,
Pats,
the Patriots, or the Dolphins. And then obviously the 4 seed is going to be whoever wins the Tennessee Jacksonville tilt.
Okay. So with that being said, but I say that I would just want us to do a rundown of that.
Okay.
Buffalo could be susceptible to a division loss. And then I look at Kansas City. I trust Mahomes. I think Mahomes has been the MVP this year. I think he's the best player in football. I think he's the best quarterback in football. I think he's the best quarterback situationally in football when his number is being called upon. Mm-hmm. I worry about Kansas City's passing defense.
Oh yeah, very susceptible.
They're second. They can stop the run, which is good, right? But you think about how Kansas City plays, and they usually have a lead, and teams usually want to throw the football, and they have to throw the football. So them being susceptible in the air or through the air is very worrisome, and it could be very problematic. So that's how I see the landscape. I think between all these great quarterbacks, Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, ultimately Herbert, it's going to come down to defensively. Which one of these quarterbacks' defenses can make the most plays? And I think whatever defense is the most consistent, I think that is the team that will be able to propel themselves and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
And I think that is key when talking about Cincinnati, because I think they have the best mix of veteran leadership, and they're just well-rounded, I think, from top to bottom. Secondary, they have two really good up-and-coming linebackers in Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. And they have a nice mixture of defensive linemen that they can mix in. DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. So they're good on that front. You look at Kansas City, even though I like this Kansas City defense more than I've liked the ones in years past, they are susceptible to the big play in the passing game, right? They don't really, quote unquote, have that guy at corner. I think L'Jarius Sneed might be their best corner. And then you look at Buffalo, and I think Buffalo has had key injuries. Tre'Davious White is still kind of getting his feet under him. Yep. They don't have Micah Hyde. They just, obviously we're talking about the Demar Hamlin, who was filling in for Micah Hyde, right, as a starter. You have Jordan Poyer, who's battled injuries this year. They got the rookie corner who they drafted out of Florida. And I think them, even though that they're a good defense, they're a little young and inexperienced. And they're depending on a lot of young guys who haven't been thrust in that role. Remember, look at that front seven. They brought in Von Miller to be the pass rush guy and to be the older statesman in that front seven. Right. Now he's gone. Now you have to depend on AJ Epinesa, who's in year 2 or year 3. And you have to depend on, I always forget the guy's name, Gregory Rousseau.
Gregory Rousseau, yeah.
Yeah, so they just have a lot of inexperience and injuries, which I think has hurt their defense.
Yeah, I agree. That's just really what I feel. I feel like Buffalo, they're gonna be in tight games, and we're gonna really test and see their effectiveness to run the football and close out these games. Because as I talked about with the 49ers, and we can really nitpick and talk about this with a lot of the best teams in the league. And this is why I think Cincinnati's so dangerous. Cincinnati can beat you. I've seen them win games in a variety of ways. And with Buffalo, primarily, they win one way. They blow you out. They blow you out.
They're not a tight game team.
They're not a tight game team. When the going gets tough and it's time to close the deal or seal the deal,
they lean on Josh Allen.
And that can be Josh Allen at times. You like I pointed out a couple weeks ago, he played his tail off. Probably the best fourth quarter I've seen him play versus Miami.
Right.
But then a couple months back, you look at the Minnesota game where it was time to close out. When it was time for him to make a big play, he made a big no. He made a big play. He made a big mistake. So it's that, I call him like the Brett Favre of this generation, like uber talented, but at times, and it's not all his fault, but at times he is thrust into positions where he has to make the play, and he feels that pressure. And that often leads to some of these, these mistakes that's just boneheaded.
And I have to throw this out, especially as a Cowboys fan, for everyone that is so critical of Dak Prescott.
Oh, man.
Josh Allen turns the ball over a lot.
Please.
A lot. As a matter of fact, I think that granted, they didn't finish this game, but going into last week, he led the NFL in multi-interception games. Yep. So he's up there in the double. First of all these top quarterbacks have double-digit interceptions. Patrick Mahomes has about 10 or 11 himself. Joe Burrow has like all these guys have double-digit interceptions. But Josh Allen specifically, since they're so dependent upon him, more often than not, you're going to get 1 or 2 turnovers from him, whether it be a fumble or whether it be an interception. So just accept that from him. Don't try to make it seem like he's holier than thou. He's made a lot of mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
But I'll say this. I think the best scenario for Buffalo right now, and I don't think this will happen, but for them to lose this week. And I say that, well, you know what? I let me go ahead and backtrack off of that. Okay. Let me go ahead and backtrack off of that, because I was thinking about a different scenario. If they win, which they should, they're gonna either see Miami or the Steelers. They're not going to see the Patriots. Obviously, if they win, the Patriots are out. They will
eliminate them. Right.
The Patriots are out. But I think that once you get into that second round, especially them as the 2 seed, you're probably going to have to see a Jacksonville if they win.
Cincinnati.
Or a Cincinnati, which could be a dangerous team. But once again, they're the 2 seed, so they'll more likely to not play
Doesn't 2 play 3? I thought the 1 seed plays the lower squad.
But remember, there's a bye. So
I know, but
so there's a bye. So yeah, let's talk about it. So there'll be the bye. So starting off, they're going to play the lowest seed as the 2 seed.
Right. Let's just say Pittsburgh gets the job done and they play Pittsburgh in the wild card. They knock off Pittsburgh in the wild card. Cincinnati's the 3. Cincinnati beats the Chargers. Cincinnati, they would then go play Cincinnati would then go play Buffalo, right? And
then the lowest seed would go to Kansas City,
right? Because they're the 1 seed.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, and that's divisional, and then it would go up from there. Okay, you're right. I agree with you on that. But still, they're going to have to eventually see Cincinnati. Yeah. So it's just it's really tight. Now, as far as Kansas City goes, I could say that I could see a Jacksonville team pushing them, just with the confidence that they're playing in. If they get in that game, they played Tennessee earlier this year. I don't know if Tennessee is going to win this game, but let's say Tennessee does. Remember that Tennessee Kansas City game was tight, like airtight.
It was
with watch this with Malik Willis at quarterback.
Okay. So there is 3. So going into that second round, that we just that scenario we just broke down. Okay. We know the other side of the bracket. There's 3 possible scenarios. They could be playing Baltimore, they could be playing Jacksonville, or Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I think the team that would present the most problems would probably be, and man, this is tough.
You're gonna say Baltimore?
I was gonna say Jacksonville.
Oh, you're talking about for Kansas City?
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Because they're a very well-rounded team.
Because I think the passing game of Jacksonville is more effective, and I trust it more than Tennessee, whoever they would have playing quarterback, and Baltimore, whoever they would have playing quarterback. I think I trust Jacksonville's passing.
Even if it's Lamar Jackson?
I think he's good.
Huh?
That's a whole nother. No. I think if he comes back, it'll definitely be Lamar Jackson.
But you think Lamar Jackson's done for the year?
I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out. I would not rule you. Get it? You wouldn't rule it out.
I mean, baby, if you have to weigh risk versus reward in his mind, it's gonna be so tough. Because in his mind, he may be like, "Man, I'll be honest, I don't see us winning the championship this year. Like, I don't see it." I mean, but I get you. He has to look out for his money.
But okay, even if it is Lamar, who's a better pure passer, Lamar or Trevor Lawrence? Who was scared? Who was scared Kansas City through the air more?
Trevor Lawrence. But right. And I agree. I agree with that. But it's not just Trevor Lawrence. They got weapons, man. Christian Kirk had his first 1,000-yard season this year. Zay Jones was actually, if he doesn't start out slow, Zay Jones could have been a 1,000-yard guy. Evan Ingram is emerged as one of the better tight ends. He started off slow too. Evan Ingram has emerged. Travis Etienne's playing his best football right now. Yep. Like, they have, and they still watch this, and they still got the older statesman, Marvin Jones.
Yeah.
They still got Marvin Jones, you know, and he's like their number 3 or 4 guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, so this is a really talented passing game. And right now, Trevor Lawrence is playing with confidence. There's still sometimes some ups and downs, but outside of that, he's really played phenomenal over the past month and a half. Yeah. So you're right. I think that is an ugly matchup based off of what they have in the secondary. Now, that being said, I do believe that that'll be a game that they'll be able, because of some of the offensive line issues, they're still growing in that area. I think that'd be like Chris Jones is him. Chris Jones is, it's funny. We're talking about Nick Bosa, but I think Chris Jones is every bit deserving of being in that defensive player of the year category as well. He is a dog.
He's a monster.
He's a monster. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of scenarios, man, going around for the AFC and the NFC.
Yeah.
But once again, I'm going to be tapped in. And I'm going to tell you this. The NFL pisses me off. They piss me the hell off. Because they are so clever at finding ways to maximize viewership and all this stuff. And they said, you know what? We're going to be pure assholes. That the NFC is up for grabs. So we're going to put the Arizona San Francisco game, the Dallas Washington, the New York Philly game all at 4:25 Eastern time. I'm like, why would you guys do this? That's
because
insulting.
it's gonna be like it's like, you know how we like I don't know, but you know how
if you don't have NFL Red Zone, you better find an app. You're gonna be watching multiple things.
Yeah, it's like you know how we pay attention to the electoral college and we trying to see all and we just looking at each state. That's how it's gonna be on Saturday, where we're gonna be looking at 3 of the same games, and it's gonna have us on pins and needles, and it's gonna be like, oh, we got our results here, we have our result here. We have our result here, and then they just pull out the standings, and it's like, boom, here's the playoff picture. And then once and you know, you want to talk about how the NFL is so clever in the scheduling. Once everything has concluded on that Sunday, not a minute late, they will have their playoff schedule out in the open. Saturday, they call it Super Wild Card Weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend. Got the game on Saturday, Sunday. It's gonna be crazy.
Exactly. So and it's funny because I have plans. I'm supposed to hang out with my dad, and we're supposed to cook and just get some father son time. And out in my head, I'm like, damn, should I do it the weekend of the 13th? Because I don't know. Dallas could possibly have the 1 seed. But then if they don't, they're gonna play. So now I'm like, dang, man, I gotta factor on this, so it makes everything interesting. Yeah. So because I think originally weren't the Cowboys supposed to, so one of these teams was supposed to play on Saturday, I think. But I think that they flexed it.
They flipped it. Yeah. I forgot who, but they flipped it.
Yeah, they definitely. Yeah. So they definitely flexed the game. But yeah, man. So I mean, that is the NFL as a whole. We could do recaps and all that stuff, but the truth is some of these games don't matter. But the games that do matter, Tennessee, Tennessee, Jacksonville. I don't know exactly who the Steelers play, but the truth is
they play the Browns.
Oh, okay, big game, right? With that BB gun offense and that defense. New England and Buffalo, which that's the funny part. Offense. And if they find a way to win that game and get in, I'm gonna be like, Jesus Christ, like Seattle, LA. Seattle can get in. Green Bay, Detroit. It's going to be a great game, right? And I think that game is another 425 game.
They flexed it.
They flexed it. That's going to be a 425 game. Yeah. I mean, you just have all these really, really good games that's deciding. So I'll put it like this: you won't know the full playoff picture until the end of Sunday.
That's it.
Until Sunday night.
Everything will conclude, and not a minute late, they're gonna have the Super Wild Card Weekend schedule already mapped out and planned.
And the NFL loves this. They're like, we get parity at the end of the year. Bet. So they finna go ahead and cash it up, and I feel bad for the NBA because it's supposed to be y'all. It's really supposed to be y'all's time right now entering, but you're just gonna have to take a back seat for about the next month. Month and some change, and then obviously it'll be over, and we'll get past All-Star break, All-Star weekend, and then you guys can get your pup. But it sucks. The NFL is just really good at getting viewership. So good. But yeah, man. I mean that is pretty much all we got for today. Like I said, a lot of football. Injury to Demar Hamlin, to college football. Obviously we'll have the national championship of TCU and Georgia.
Who you got
here in I want to take TCU, but the truth is Georgia is they're just a tough team. And here's the thing: they're not gonna make the same mistakes that Michigan made. Yeah. And they're gonna be able to make some of the stops that Michigan wasn't gonna be able to make. So I'm just gonna take Georgia. It could possibly get ugly, but I'm gonna tell you this: deep down, somewhere dormant in my soul, I'm rooting for TCU. I would love to troll SEC fans if TCU won. I love it.
Here's the thing. Here's a cool couple things. I take Georgia too. I don't think TCU. I think they're really good. And I think this game will be close. I think the most Georgia probably wins by 10 or 14 points. But I think this game stays close for the most part. Georgia might break away at the end. Right. I'll say this. I don't think TCU have the same perimeter talent outside the numbers that Ohio State had.
They got Quentin Johnson.
They got Quentin Johnson.
Best receiver, probably outside of whatchamacallit. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., he's probably the best receiver in the nation.
Okay, that's fair. But here's the thing: when Harrison Jr. got knocked out of the game, first, in Georgia was already paying a lot of attention, and they committed so much attention and reinforcements to Marvin Harrison Jr. that then opened up the lanes for guys like Iboka and stuff like that. Once Harrison Jr. was out of the game, Georgia's attention was able to shift and focus. And some of those Ohio State guys wasn't able to take advantage of their matchups like they were because they were receiving more attention. I think with TCU, Georgia will put a lot of effort into limiting Quentin Johnson and making someone else beat them. I think that's the key. And if you pay attention to what happened, like the swing of that game once Marvin Harrison Jr. went out, Ohio State didn't score no more touchdowns. It was all field goal, field goal, field goal. It was all field goals. So I think TCU can run the ball a little bit more effectively. So that can be a little bit something they can rely on. But I thought overall, I think Georgia's going to win. Overall, I thought the Big Ten missed a huge
opportunity. They did.
Huge opportunity
to have a Big Ten national championship.
Big Ten, it would have been great for the Big Ten, and it would have been an awakening for the SEC. I feel like to the new climate of college football. But check this out: 16 of the last 17 national championship games have included an SEC team.
I agree. I mean, yeah. No, I get it. I agree. I mean, yeah. It's very, very simple on that front. I think TCU is definitely going to be physical with Georgia, and I think that I don't think Georgia will be surprised, but TCU is not going to walk into. They're going to run the football at them. They're going to really challenge. They're going to see what they're made of. And that's what I like about this team that Sonny Dykes has really coached up, that they believe in themselves. And defensively, I can argue this. One thing I can say about you that I couldn't say about Ohio State is they're going to challenge them. They're going to challenge those receivers and a lot different. So don't be surprised if you see Stetson Bennett throw a few interceptions or have a few turnovers or not have as much success through the air as he's had in weeks past, because TCU probably has one of the better cornerback duos in the nation, and they have some really good safety. So they're going to it's just going to look a lot different. But unfortunately, the talent is going to show. So I could see that similar to what you were saying is it'll be tight, and you'll see Georgia pull away towards the end, and it'll look a little bit uglier than the game actually was. But I mean, you got to give credit to those guys for making it.
Absolutely. TCU, great season.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens. So, yeah, we will have an update for you guys here. I want to say that game is on the 9th.
Yes.
So it'll be the Monday before we go on. So we'll definitely recap that next time we come around next Tuesday for Rooted in Sports, and then we'll have an update. We'll have the updated playoff picture. We'll give our predictions on the matchups. So that'll be fun, and then we'll give you guys a little NBA fix too. I know we owe you guys, so we'll show my NBA fans some love. But,
absolutely.
Yeah. But outside of that, man, it's like I said, it's been a great Rooted in Sports Tuesday, great sports week. And we will have some great updates next week.
All right.
Got anything for us, Zay?
That's about it. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed today.
Me too. Oh, and shout out to Donovan Mitchell for scoring 70 points against the Bulls.
Yeah.
Swan Don's Bulls. Yeah. So, yeah. So I will see you guys next week.
Peace. Deuces.
Peace.